What's going on, everybody? Thank you so much for joining me. Welcome back to the channel. It's been about 2 years since I've owned this Vitpilen 401 here that you see. I put about 4,750 miles on it so far, and I've rode it in all kinds of different scenarios. So traffic scenarios, normal commuting scenarios, freeway scenarios. I've even taken it on trips. I think about 90 miles away or so, maybe 100 miles, something like that. So not a long trip, but not in town either, actually somewhat out of town, right? And I think at this point I've been able to form an opinion as to whether I think a 300 to 400 cc motorcycle is enough even for a beginner rider. So the subject of this video, it's going to be this 2022 Vitpilen 401. For those that don't know, Vitpilen 401s, they are basically a Duke 390. Okay, so it's a 373 cc single cylinder KTM engine. I can't remember if it's 43 or 44 horsepower, but something like that. And these bikes with gas in them, so ready to ride, fluids, fuel, everything, they're about 340 pounds, 342, something like that. That number varies a little bit, but that's the most accurate number that I've been able to find, is about 340 with fuel in it. So as far as power to weight goes, for this class of motorcycle, so 300 to 400 cc motorcycles, this is gonna have one of the better, if not the best, power to weight ratios. For example, MT-03s are very popular. That's a very popular motorcycle, great motorcycle, similar power, but much heavier. Those bikes with fuel are about 370 pounds. So just right out of the gate, these are about 30 pounds lighter than an MT-03. Again, I'm just using that as an example. These bikes also, so these Vitpilen 401s, they're very, very easy to take weight off of. I actually have a video on how to take about 20 pounds off of one of these Vitpilen 401s without spending a dime. It's just taking the skid plates off, taking that big metal rear fender thing off, taking the reflectors off, taking the goofy mirrors off, taking the huge muffler off of it, and so forth. So very easy to take weight off these bikes. This bike in particular, conservatively, I've taken 25 pounds off this bike. That's very, very conservative. I think it's closer to 30. It's decatted, and I'll get into that here in a second. So for power, it has a little bit more power than stock. It's got a Fuel X tune on it. It's decatted, muffler delete, air filter. So it has a little bit more power than stock, not a ton more, but I certainly felt a difference when I decatted this bike and tuned it. Okay, and let's take a quick walk around. So for those that are a little bit more familiar with these bikes, we could see it's been decatted, no skid plate there. It's got lighter weight rear sets on it, no muffler. It just has this little shorty pipe there. No giant rear fender thing on the back. It's got some carbon bits. Okay, lightweight battery, no goofy mirrors or anything like that. It's got the lighter turn signals on them, so no more halogen turn signals. These are now LED, and so forth. So more power and lighter, but just so everybody knows what I'm talking about, this is gonna be the subject of my experiences here with this size motorcycle and the various different scenarios I've rode this bike. Okay, so in this video, I'm not trying to tell anybody what to do. I'm just sharing my experience. I'm just sharing my thoughts, hoping that it will help somebody. I know a lot of people are gonna say, oh no, you need to start on a 300 or a 400. That's totally fine, that's up to them. After 2 years of owning this Vitpilen 401, again, this is gonna be best case scenario for a 300 to 400 cc motorcycle. This motorcycle is very, very light. So with the weight taken off of it, it's easily low 300s, right? 300 pounds, right? Low 300 pounds. And it's got a little bit more power, right? So let's just say it's got maybe 45 horsepower. Since it's a single cylinder, it's very torquey, so it makes good power down low. I mean, this bike here, first gear, no clutch, just chopping the throttle, the front wheel will come up. Okay, so that kind of tells you, not a fast bike by any means, but Not a slow one either. It certainly has a good power to weight ratio. It's nice and light for the amount of power that it has. So, that being said, what are my thoughts on a 300 to 400 cc motorcycle being enough bike, being enough power, being safe? I think this Vitpilen 401, as it sits now, I think this is the absolute bare minimum that I would want to ride and be safe if I'm on the freeway for, any extended period of time. So meaning, if you're on the freeway, just like hopping on and then getting off at the next exit, this is fine. An MT-03 would be fine. But if you're on the freeway for 20 miles, if you're commuting 40 miles, something like that, I would say that this is the absolute bare minimum. And as you can see here, guys, I'm not a particularly heavy rider either. If you're a heavier rider, if you're 230 pounds, 270 pounds, a bigger guy, more substantial guy, something like this, especially like an MT-03 that's already heavier as it is, and to me, is not enough motorcycle, okay? Doesn't mean that these bikes are slow at all. It's not what it means. When you look at the power to weight of one of these Vitpilen 401s or KTM Duke 390s, their power to weight is actually similar to like a 5-liter Mustang, okay, which is a good power to weight ratio, right? The issue that you have though is with motorcycles, you have way less momentum, you have a lot more drag. So in freeway situations, for example, there are some scenarios where, in my opinion, these bikes are a little bit unsafe. So of course, as safe riders, we try to not put ourselves in situations where we're stuck between two cars, we're pinned between two trucks, we're in a situation where we really need to accelerate to move out of the way. Of course, we try to not put ourselves in those situations, right? But they do happen. There are situations where, let's say light turned yellow and it's safer to make the light as opposed to stopping somewhat suddenly and risk getting rear-ended from behind, right? So just as an example, same goes for freeway riding. There's certain situations where it's not really ideal. It's not really as safe to slow down and move out of the way. It's actually safer to accelerate and move out of the way. And I think with these little bikes like this, this Vitpilen 401 is the bare minimum. If it was any slower, I would say it's not safe to ride on the freeway. Can it ride on the freeway? Yes. I mean, this bike will go over 100 miles an hour, okay? So it can go on the freeway, but it's not the safest situation to put yourself in because, again, there's certain scenarios where it's just not ideal to be sitting there in the way, not being able to move easily, right? And now you're in a dangerous situation. So what do I mean by moving easily? I'm going to show you some footage here in just a bit to give you some examples, but what do I mean by moving easily? What I mean is not having to go full throttle, shift down 2 gears to move out of the way. Okay, so this Vitpilen, it can definitely get out of the way. It's got good power, but if I live in California, most of our freeways, everybody's going even in the slow lane, most cars are going 75 miles an hour, right? Our speed limit on most of our freeways is 65, but even in the slow lane, people are going 75 miles an hour. In the fast lane, 80 plus easily, sometimes 90 plus, right? It's just the reality. I know in the comments, you guys are probably gonna say whatever you're gonna say, but it's just the reality, right? And I've been to a lot of other states in our country, and they're the same, right? When you go to Florida, when you go to Texas, it's the same. The speed limit is one thing, but the flow of traffic is 10 to 20 miles an hour above, okay? So when you have one of these little bikes, little 300 to 400 cc bikes, if you're already going 80 miles an hour and you need to move in front of somebody or merge or whatever you need to do to just get out of the way, just get in a safer situation, these bikes they don't have much more left in the tank when you're already going 80 to 85 miles an hour, right? So if you need to get up to 90, for example, again, those situations are rare, right? As safe riders, we try to not put ourselves in those situations, but they do happen, okay? Again, anybody that says that that doesn't happen, they're just lying, right? Or they're not riding very much, right? They do happen, although it's rare. And in those situations, these bikes, they're not tapped out, but I mean, you're gonna have that throttle all the way open. Whereas if you had a larger displacement bike, if you had, you know, an RS660, an R7, something like that, you wouldn't have to go down to fourth gear and have that throttle all the way open to move out of.
Let's go ahead and open it up. Okay, that's full throttle. Okay, and we're up to 80 miles an hour. So as you can see, guys, even in optimal conditions in the right gear, it does take a little bit of time to accelerate. Okay, so let's power out of that turn there. Let's get up to freeway speed. Okay, so there we go. We're cruising now. And, you know, again, we're comfortable. However, if I need to accelerate, if I'm in top gear, I need to move, it's going to struggle a little bit. So let's go ahead and test that out. Okay, so that is full throttle there. Okay, so with the throttle all the way open, it takes some time to get up to the low 80 miles an hour, right? So I'm on the freeway now, 75 miles an hour. I'm in the slow lane, and you can see that there's cars pulling away from me. So, right, so like this, I'm going 73, and we had this car just pass me. I mean, it's just not doing anything wrong. It's just, that's just the way things are in most metropolitan areas. People just drive a little bit faster. So for now, there's not really much traffic, so I can just hang out in the slow lane, no problem, no big deal. But if this was during other times of the day where there's a lot more traffic, there's people merging, there's people coming on the freeway, this may not be the best place for me to be, right? It would probably be better if I was not in this lane, in the fast lane, or not fast lane, maybe the number 2 lane, for example. And if I do that, okay, if I do that, right, I've got to put on some speed, and it does take some time. So that's what I mean, you guys, is it can definitely go on the freeway. It's definitely not a slow bike. I wouldn't say that at all. However, you know, to be comfortable on the freeway, I think that something with more displacement would be better, right? So, I mean, it's not really ideal to have to basically go wide open throttle to pass on the freeway, right? So it'd be a little bit more comfortable if you did not have to do that, if you didn't have to shift down. So even when I shift down, you guys, it still takes a while to put on speed when you're already going 65, 70 miles an hour, right? So let's go ahead and shift down, right? Let's get up to 65, okay, and watch. Right, so it's not totally slow, but it does take a little bit of time. And again, and what I just did there, that was wide open throttle, okay? That was wide open throttle, right? Whereas if I had a 700 or something like that, I wouldn't have had to go wide open throttle there to just kind of move around on the freeway, okay, guys?
On some of the footage there, this bike, it's not slow, but there's a lot of situations where you basically have to go wide open throttle and shift down a few gears just to do normal things, right? Normal things meaning merge on the freeway, move up, you know, and put on speed or increase speed to get in front of other cars and so forth, right? So the question becomes, would I do this again, right? This bike was meant to be a commuter bike. It wasn't meant to be a beginner bike. I did not start riding on this bike, okay? It was not meant for that. This was meant to be a commuter bike. I wanted something that was inexpensive to obtain, inexpensive to maintain, so cheap tires, cheap oil, cheap, good fuel mileage, right? 60 miles a gallon, cheap aftermarket parts. And I landed on this, right? I love this bike, I really do. But if I could do it again, would I get another 400cc motorcycle as a commuter? My answer is no. Again, this is bare minimum motorcycle, but for just mixed freeway riding. But if I could do it again, I would not get this size motorcycle. I would definitely get something bigger. I would get an R7, MT-07, RS660, something like that. Maybe one of the Triumphs or something. I would not get this small of a motorcycle again. It's just not enough. I just don't like being stuck in those situations where I'm just wide open throttle trying to kind of place myself in a better situation on the freeway, right? Again, I try to think ahead. I try to, anticipate what's going to happen and not get myself in those situations, but they do happen. And it's not a good feeling when you're pinned open and you're not putting on speed quick enough to put yourself in a safe situation. So I would not do this again. I would have gotten something bigger, and I think it's going to be for a later video, but the Vitpilen's probably going to go up for sale here soon, and I'm going to get something larger for a commuter bike. Okay, guys, so hope that helps. I don't want to get the wrong impression that I don't like this Vitpilen 401. I do like it a lot. I just think that for me, I fell victim to kind of those FUD videos where, riders on YouTube would say, oh yeah, 400 is plenty. You can get yourself in plenty of trouble and so forth with even a 400. And that's true, right? You could definitely get in trouble with one of these bikes. I mean, if you're pinning it everywhere you go, even on a 250, you're going to get in trouble, right? So, but I think I just fell into that FUD mentality that, you have to, 400 is plenty. I mean, a lot of people start on 400s. It's the perfect beginner bike and all this other stuff, right? It's more than you need and so forth. And again, just one person's opinion. I'm not trying to tell anybody what to do, but for me, that is not true at all. I think these are too small for modern traffic situations. And if I could do it again, I would get something else. I would get something with larger displacement, maybe like a Vitpilen 701 or something like that. So don't fall into that trap that I did, right? So now, even though these bikes are inexpensive, these Vitpilen 401s are not expensive bikes, I'm still on the hook for the taxes, the setup fee, the freight, the document fees, the registration, right? So even if I get, let's say it's a miracle and I get back MSRP for this bike. I think the MSRP at the time when I bought this bike was $5,300, right? I get the whole $5,300 back. Well, I still lost tax. I still lost all the taxes. I still lost the freight fee. I still lost the setup fee, the document fee, the registration, and so forth, right? So best, never gonna happen scenario, right? Just absolute miracle. I'm still out a couple $1,000s, right? When if I would have just not listened to the FUDs and got a larger motorcycle, a motorcycle with a larger engine in it with more power, I wouldn't be in that situation. Okay. So anyways, guys, hope that helps somebody. Again, I'm not trying to tell anybody what to do. For those that disagree with me, that's totally fine. You do what you do. I'm not going to tell anybody that they're wrong. I'm just sharing my experience that I had here, hoping that it will save somebody the time and the money. So if you guys like what you see, please like and subscribe. I'm getting plenty of views. I just need a few more subscribers to get me over that 1,000 subscriber hump. So if you guys could do that for me, that'd be very, very much appreciated. But thank you so much for watching. We'll see you guys next time. Be on the lookout for more Vitpilen content, more Panigale V2 content. There's going to be another motorcycle being added to the channel here, possibly a few motorcycles added to this channel here. So please be on the lookout for that. I'm working very hard to create more content for you guys. So we'll see you guys soon. See you next time.